Cooper Beebe, Kansas State, best interior offensive lineman in the country, according to a lot of the draft nicks. You're going to hear from him today. We're going to talk actual football, but not before we talk realignment, because I got the guy who broke a massive realignment story on Wednesday. Dan Wetzel from Yahoo clued us in that there's a subgroup of Big Ten presidents examining potentially taking some more schools from the Pac-12. Dan, what is going on with that?
Yeah, they four presidents met and started exploratory talks, preliminary talks. Would we want to add more teams to the league? Obviously, USC and UCLA are coming next season, 2024. The first move that totally destabilized the Pac-12 and predictably set what happened yesterday in motion, where they didn't have as much media value because, hey, they no longer have LA. And they're looking and saying, do we want to go to 18 teams and add Oregon and Washington, which Fox and NBC and CBS are very supportive of, or apparently supportive of? Do we then want to go further and just own the West Coast and move the Big Ten brand into the Bay Area and take Stanford and Cal also and go to 20, which appeals academically and recruiting wise for not just players, but actual just regular students and things like that to presidents, but is less appealing to the TV people who would shell out the money. So they could stay at 16. We don't know. They could say, hey, look, this is enough. 16 is already very large. Or they could say, let's go for broke. The Pac-12 is breaking up. Let's add Oregon and Washington. Let's do the whole thing. Or they could do somewhere in the middle. We'll see. But the big dog, the Big Ten, is back on the back looking around at expansion possibilities.
I'm so glad somebody read the column I wrote at my old job the day after Texas and Oklahoma said they were going to the SEC. And that said, hey, Big Ten, take USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal. So I'm glad somebody read that.
Yeah.
I am surprised it took this long, I guess, but it seems to me, Dan, and I don't know about you, that they're kind of sitting in wait to see what happens with Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah. And if those guys go and leave the Pac-12, then the Big Ten's not dealing the death blow, even though they already kind of did.
Yeah, they do have this bit where they don't want to be the conference that killed another conference, especially their supposed alliance partner. As you know, it's a really beautiful friendship they had.
They looked each other in the eyes.
They looked each other in the eyes, and now they're going to kill it. I find this comically hysterical and perfectly encapsulates college athletics. Well, we're not going to kill you, although we already killed you. It's like we gave you the original disease that put you on your deathbed, but we're not going to give you we're not going to put the bullet in your head at the end to kill you. I mean, look, taking USC and UCLA is what will eventually kill the Pac-12. Maybe there is a scenario where it could survive, but yes, they're trying to see if Arizona goes and all of a sudden this thing is really rocky, or if Utah and Arizona State go with them to the Big 12. We don't know if the Big 12 can really get to 16 teams. Will their media partners keep adding $31 million a year to the bill to add Arizona State, Utah? That is one roadblock here. We don't know yet. So a lot could happen, but if this thing falls, yeah, they're circling the carcass and saying, what do we want? We're just going to pick this apart, scrap heap, whatever you got to do. And it's quite amazing because they could essentially probably get Oregon and Washington, Cal and Stanford at a discounted rate.
Yeah.
60, 70% of revenue. Big Ten's going to make 50 to 65 million a year in media rights. I don't think it's quite settled exactly what it's going to be. 70% of 65 million is still 42 million. That's 10 more than the big, 70% of 50 is 35 million. It's still
so
more
jealous about your math skills.
Yeah.
I can't do this on the fly.
But, Andy, I went to UMass and it's a tremendous academic school. I'm surprised the Big Ten hasn't stepped in to grab it for the academics.
Bring back Marcus Camby and they might.
We're the Harvard of Massachusetts, except for Harvard,
Except for
you know, or the other Harvards. But anyway, we, you know, that's where you're at, and you go, they can get these guys maybe on the cheap, and you know they can own the West Coast.
Yeah.
The whole thing makes no sense. You have a 16 flank out west.
Well, have them play the non-revenue sports as a league. Those 6 teams,
right?
You're not sending volleyball players to Piscataway,
and you get the 4th window. That maybe ESPN comes back to the table and throws some more millions on the fire. But you know, a 20-team league. Do you play the conference championship game in the Rose Bowl?
I mentioned this on the show the other day, but when I interviewed Kevin Warren when he was still the Big Ten commissioner at the Sports Business Journal thing in Las Vegas last year, I said, was it difficult deciding that you weren't going to be making a deal with ESPN? And his answer I thought was very interesting because he said, "Oh, we haven't decided not to do a deal with ESPN. There's still a chance that could happen." I know Kevin Warren was keen on the idea of adding more from the West Coast. And so that said to me, "Oh, you'd sell the late night windows to ESPN." And that does seem like something that would make sense. Now, here's where what the irony of ironies would be. Let's say all this happens. Let's say those 3 schools go to the Big 12 and the Big 10 takes those 4 schools and makes a deal with Apple to pay for it.
Yeah.
Now, they wouldn't all be on Apple because some of their games would be on NBC or CBS or Fox or the Big Ten Network, but some of their games would be on Apple at that point.
Could Apple jump in that way? It's possible. I mean, they, you know, part of these deals was cutting down on the bidding. You know, if you eliminate a conference, there's less you have to pay there's less inventory out there for TV networks to have to bid against each other. Like the Pac-12 became a less appealing thing that actually drives down the cost of other things. So this is all business. It's all money. You know, TV networks are driving all of this realignment. They don't care about the Apple Cup. They don't care whether you're ever going to have a chance to actually win your league.
Yes.
I mean, good luck to Stanford in the Big Ten. My goodness. Or Cal. They don't care about tradition. They care about how many big brands can we get on TV that'll deliver us 4 million plus viewers, 8 million plus, 10 million plus. And that's all they care about. And this all of college athletics, no matter how much time they spend crying in front of Congress or holding little night commissions or issuing reports out of Indianapolis, this entire operation is being run by a couple television networks. That's it.
Well, and the Big Ten especially. This is run by Fox. And here's the part I think is interesting, because you mentioned Cal and Stanford, which definitely seems like something the Big Ten presidents would prefer and not something Fox would want at all. But I just spent a lot of my day watching a trustees meeting in Tallahassee. Well, I guess it was on Zoom. Somebody was in a car. But Florida State trustees meeting where they basically declared, we're done with the ACC. We don't want to be here anymore. And it got me thinking, because your story had just come out. And so I was thinking about this. If you're Fox, how much more would you rather add Clemson and Florida State than Cal and Stanford to the Big Ten?
Fox would absolutely like it. But there is more to this if the presidents are making deals. And so I've done a bunch of interviews. I don't want to repeat myself, but like, you're trying to get the Big Ten to own the Bay Area. We're the schools of the Bay Area, tech companies, Silicon Valley, all the alums.
Very Larry Scott to me.
Yes, but regular students, right? Like, I know this, like at the University of Michigan, I think their freshman class that's coming in, the most students entering the class are from the state of Michigan, obviously. Number 2 is, I believe, is California this year. So they're getting more kids from California to go to Michigan than Illinois or Ohio or any of the states right next to it. California has the people in California have money. They're willing to. So you want these.
That's real economics there too.
It's real economics.
An out-of-state student pays 2 to 3 times what an in-state
full
student
boat,
pays,
and they're elite students, right?
Yep. It's why I always say Nick Saban is worth about 20 times what they pay him at Alabama, because he's the one who's allowed them to take more out-of-state students because they get more applications because they're on TV all the time. And it is part of it is huge.
And Bama Rush. And Bama
That's
Rush.
true.
Okay, do not the sororities, the sorority bit is doing it too. But yeah, that's your thing. So there is another economic in there. And I think that's what frustrates Florida State. And I don't blame them. And Florida State fans go, wait, what is this garbage? Why are we, who historically, and they're back. They haven't had a great 10 years, but they're back. Yeah, to being pretty good.
They did win a national title 10 years ago.
They won. Yeah, they peaked and then dropped. But, they had a couple lean years. But whatever. We've earned this. We've earned a seat at this table. How the heck aren't we at it? How are we 30 million behind? But not everything is about putting the best teams together.
Right.
And so, if you're and look at let's say you go around the Big Ten. Let's say you're talking to Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
You say, hey, man, you want to add Clemson and Florida State? There's two more teams we probably can't beat.
That's exactly right.
Or you get a trip out to San Francisco. You see your rich alums. You beat the hell out of Cal. It's all good. Hey, how about a little something for the lower thing? So there's a lot there, and that's what the question is: will the pieces fit? And I get Florida State's frustration. What's their solution other than continuing to scream, "We want more money"? And why would the ACC give them more money if they know you're leaving anyway?
This is what I've been saying since that was brought up as a solution in the ACC. It doesn't make any, if you're the president of Boston College or Syracuse right now, why are you going to agree to give Florida State more money? By the time the conference eventually breaks up in 2036, which it would, you're not working there anymore. You're just the idiot who gave them more money. So they're not going to do that. Florida State's not going to abide by that. I mean, they had a trustee get up and say, hey, there's a deadline of August 15th to declare that you're not going to be in the conference after next year. I don't think they're going to hit that deadline, but this trustee is like, we have to have a plan in place to do that within the next 12 months. They're going to try to leave. I'm not sure they have a plan. I want to know what it is if they have one.
If it was that easy to get out of this grant of rights, someone would be out of the grant of rights, right? I don't know. I don't know. Clemson and Florida, they also all agreed unanimously to this thing not that long ago. And I will say this. If the media companies continue to struggle, this deal actually might not end up being that bad by the end.
Right. ESPN may be like, I don't know if we can afford this anymore in 2034.
So we'll see. This thing may zoom back around a little bit. But I understand it is it's very frustrating if you're watching this show, if you listen to our podcast, you do any of that, you love the sport and you love all of the sport and you love that they play that a team in Manhattan, Kansas can play and then a team in Boise, Idaho.
A lot of the sport if all of this
the regional rivalries and the traditions of that and not just hey, great. Because one of the things, we talk about this a lot, one of the most amazing things about college athletics is they have gotten the fans to root for revenue share.
It is crazy.
They wear it like, I'm 31.7 million, the Big Ten. We're only going to get this. We'll be 5 million below. It's not your money. You're not getting the money. Your school isn't going out of business. These schools are rich. They could raise.
They're not going to charge less for tickets.
They don't charge less for tickets. They don't sell you the hoodie for less. They don't sell your parking place for less. They find more way. Oh, we're going to sell beer now. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Nobody sits around and goes, hey, you know what? My NFL team, we only went 6-11 this year, but the owner, my God, the owner made $400 million on this thing. I'm so excited for him. Like, come on, you want to win. And so it's like, but they're so into it. And then they just waste the money. Hey, let's do another new locker room. Let's buy out that crappy offensive coordinator we shouldn't have bought. We should, all the different stuff. And so you sit around and you go, you're winning less. You're not playing the teams you want to play. But your athletic department is rich and you can hire 14 more deputy athletic directors. Is that real? Like, you're Nebraska. Like, how much fun is this? Great. You're rich. Is this fun?
It's fun for the people who are rich. So that's why they keep doing it.
Yeah.
But I did some math and I realize that's not my strong suit, but I was listening to you and Ross Dellinger and Pat Forty on the College Football Inquirer podcast, and you were mentioning Arizona, and we're talking about $10 million probably difference between staying in the Pac-12 and going to the Big 12. And I did the math on the student fee. If you raise the student fee $200 on everybody, so $200 on the 37,000 undergrads and on the 9,000 grad students, or however, it's 44,000 total. I told you I'm bad at math.
Okay.
But essentially, you raise almost $9 million right there, $200 a year, jacking that fee up. Schools all over the FBS do this stuff, and they have a fairly small fee at Arizona compared to like UCF, but you could do that, and that money's there, and then you hit up a donor for the rest of it. You could pull that off, and it's the same amount of money.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We talked about this. They charge about $100 in a student fee right now, athletic fee at the University of Arizona. You pop that up to $300. It's still below, and I think I still got the math around here. I think somebody was charging, I don't know. UCF, Central Florida, collects $28 million in athletic student fees. $28 million.
It's a pretty great conference TV deal.
They don't talk about that. Yeah. They don't want that out there. They talk about something, right? So you can come to 10. I've heard this a million times with Notre Dame. Notre Dame, not making as much money as the Big Ten. No, they need the money. Have you ever walked around Notre Dame? I dare anyone to step foot on that campus and say, man, if only this place had a buck or two. Their most famous building has a golden dome on it. They have more money than they know what to. Money is not the problem.
You almost said they have more money than God, but
they do not. But they're the ones paying them, right? They're the middle guy. They're his banker. No, people. Well, look how much money. And this is my thing with Clemson and Florida State. I know this isn't good. Purdue's making $30 million more. Michigan State's making. That's true. That is all true. But you know what Purdue doesn't have? Atlanta, an hour and a half away. Mm-hmm. Okay. They don't have access to those recruits. They don't have sunshine. They don't have other things.
They have astronauts. They made a lot of astronauts.
They have astronauts. They got a lot of engineers. They're smart. There's a lot that goes into building a winner than just having the most money. Would you, in the last 10 years, would you rather be Indiana football with tons of money, or would you like to be an hour and a half away at Cincinnati with less money and tons of wins? I think it'd be a little more fun to be Cincinnati. A lot goes into winning. It's not just how much money we have. These ADs who are controlling the money and get paid off this money have sold this to the fans like it's the be all and end all. It just isn't. It just isn't.
And it's not changing though. And I do think there's pressure on not just the ADs, but the pressure on the presidents from the fans because they don't want to feel in any way disadvantaged. Now,
yes, but that's because they're sold that it's
right.
Yes, there's tons of pressure on it. Everyone's flipping out. Oh my God, we're Arizona. We got to give it all up because of 10 million. You go, hold on, why? Your basketball program's still going to be good.
Yeah,
you got enough to your football team is going to be fine.
Although if I'm Arizona and I'm a big basketball fan, I'm like, yeah, let's be in the same conference as Baylor and Kansas and.
But that might make it harder to win. That might make it harder to win.
Yeah, that's true. But your gut, what do you think happens? Is it because this could go a lot of ways? The nuclear scenario that we've been discussing, I still don't think is greater than 50-50 right now.
I agree. It's hard to predict, and it's hard to put a number because a lot could happen. Let me say this. We kind of alluded to it earlier. Let's say the Big 12 goes to Fox and ESPN? They're with Fox and ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
Says, okay, we're going to go to 16. We got Arizona State, and Utah. And Fox and ESPN are going, look, man, that's another. We got to add 3 more, so that's another $123 million. Or no, that's to be 90.
That's with Colorado too.
Yeah, Colorado, whatever. We're not paying that. We don't have that. We're not just going to give everyone a prorated deal.
So
we'll take Arizona.
I had somebody in the Big 12 yesterday tell me they definitely got enough to do 14
to 14.
The TV folks are good with 14, and that they have a path to 16.
Okay, so let's say if they get that done, then Armageddon's going to hit. But what if it's only 14? So I don't think this is a great path. But let's it's just Arizona.
Then it chills out. I think.
Right. And the
Yeah.
Big Ten says, well, we're not going to be the one that they're going to take this little ethical high ground and say, well, we're not going to be the one to kill it. Also, they know at the long run, they're going to get them whenever they need to anyway.
Yeah.
So if Arizona State and Utah stay and the Big Ten says, we're not going to take Oregon and Washington, then there's 8 Pac-12 teams and you add San Diego State and maybe you add SMU or you add Boise, whatever you do, it all chills out. It's not that hard to see that happening also.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you're Oregon and Washington at that point and Utah, you look at that and you go, listen, there's an automatic playoff berth for the 6 highest ranked conference champs. We're just going to trade that over and over.
Yep.
We have access. And I think there wouldn't, because people keep asking, are they going to change that particular rule with the playoff when the new contract hits 2 years after the changes? I don't think so. If the Pac-12 is that, if it's what we just said, if it is disintegrated or somehow merged with the Mountain West, yeah, they probably drop that number to 5.
Yeah, that'd be 5, or who knows? Who knows what they do? But I agree. And let's say, look, we haven't gotten to the playoff. I think the playoff could be a stabilizer for all conferences because a path to get in becomes your thing. Gonzaga doesn't leave the West Coast Conference because it doesn't need to. Right. They're not sitting there going, we don't have enough money. No, we just do our own thing and it works because we're really good at basketball. We can still recruit. We can get to the Final Four. So not only that, playoff share of revenue is going to be based on how many teams you get in, right? You get one team in a 10-team league, you got 10 slices. You put one in a 16, you're getting a smaller share. So there's a little more there. But mainly it's like, what do you get out of winning? What do you get out of late season games that you're in playoff contention? Selling out your stadiums and all of those things, there's a big advantage to that, especially someone like an Arizona State that's still trying to build up or rebuild their program. Utah, Oregon, they pretty much fill up. But there is definitely a chance that this fades out. But I think that big thing is, can the Big 12 expand to 16? Or is the media partners going to say you're stuck at 14?
I think they can do 16 if Arizona State and Utah say yes.
Yeah, my guess is that will happen and we'll end up with a 20-team Big Ten or an 18-team,
The great land grab.
I guess I would give more likely that this is it. But I do think there's a chance it doesn't happen. I don't know.
Yeah, it will be fascinating to watch. One more story I wanted to run by you, because I know we talked about Hunter Deckers last night, the Iowa State quarterback. You guys on your podcast talked about him and an Iowa baseball player who got caught placing bets. The news out of Iowa City today, Iowa backup kicker Aaron Blom, charge of tampering with records. So he apparently placed, this is according to the Cedar Rapids Gazette, approximately 170 underage sports wagers, including a bet on an Iowa football game. And Dan, you're not going to believe it, but he bet the under. He bet the under on the 2021 Iowa State game, which he didn't play in. So I'm not accusing anyone of shaving points or anything.
Right.
But the total on that game was 45.5. And I know what you're thinking. What? That sounds awfully high. But in the Vegas remains undefeated category, the final score of that game was Iowa 27, Iowa State 17. So 44 and a half.
Yeah.
Ticket cashed. Unfortunately, you may never
by
get to
half
play
a point.
again.
By half a point.
Yeah.
What's 27? Yeah.
Or no, by a point and a half, I think.
Point and a half. Okay. Well, that is the most Iowa State bet of all time. Gambling scandal. We also got the moms setting up accounts for these kids. What is that? That's not a good idea.
Right. Like,
not good parenting.
Give your kid a sip of beer every once in a while, but we're not funding your gambling or having your gambling be under my name. Like, I don't want your crappy picks. Like, I see my kid picking games for free. Like, I don't want his picks under my account.
We have talked about this off air before. U.S. Integrity that monitors all this stuff. Absolutely terrifying. If you have downloaded any of them, DraftKings, BetMGM, whatever, FanDuel, they know where you are right now within 3 feet.
Yeah.
Like they know where your phone is. They know what you're doing right now. They're probably listening to this podcast. I don't know.
Well, I hope
they are right on top of everything. If you're involved in college athletics, just don't. It's just don't. You just don't gamble. You're going to get busted.
My thing is, like, I don't care if some college football player puts $5 on an NBA game. That doesn't bother me. But common sense, do not bet on a game your team is involved in.
The NCAA cares. You can't bet on the NBA because so you can bet on horse racing,
Pari-mutuels,
and like UFC, stuff like that. Just take a couple years off. Like it's not the time for this because they're going to catch you. And mom's phone is not that ain't gonna work.
Well, and that's the thing. I was initially reading it and being like, well, how come mom and dad didn't say like, well, we made those bets? And I realized, oh no, they're geo-located. Like they know exactly where you were and where mom and dad were when those bets were placed. And if you weren't in the same place, you can't do anything.
100%. They can tell you what part of the locker room made the bet. If there's a bet right before, they can tell you whether it was the referee's room. They're going to nail you. What you give away on that is amazing.
It is the new big brother. Dan, this has been fascinating.
Always fun.
I know you're busy. You got more stuff to do. You probably got more interviews to do, but we're going to have to get back together when the dust settles and figure out what the hell happened with all this stuff.
Let's do it. Always fun to be on, man. Congrats on the new show. Really happy for you.
Thank you, sir. Listen to Dan on the College Football Inquirer podcast with Ross Dellinger and Pat Forty, and read him at yahoosports.com.